In the 23rd century, Earth choked under the weight of its own excess and neglect. The Great Famine of 2242 had been the catalyst, shattering the fragile peace between the opulent sky cities of the elite and the sprawling, dust-choked surface settlements where the majority scraped for survival. The ensuing conflict, known as the Silo Wars, wasn't fought with lasers and starships, but with desperation and the last vestiges of hope. It was a war of resources, a bitter struggle for arable land, clean water, and breathable air. The sky cities, shielded by shimmering energy domes, had initially ignored the plight below, convinced of their own untouchable superiority. But the hunger, like a relentless tide, had eventually lapped at their pristine shores, carried on the desperate waves of refugees and the whispers of rebellion. The surface dwellers, once fragmented and powerless, had found a terrifying unity in their shared suffering, forging crude but effective weapons from scrap, and a burning resolve to reclaim their home. The first blow against the sky cities wasn't a bomb, but a silence, a sudden, eerie hush as the automated supply lines from below ceased to function. The sky city citizens, accustomed to effortless abundance, felt a shiver of unease for the first time in generations. They looked down from their glittering perches, not with contempt, but with a dawning fear. The unease quickly curdled into panic as systems began to falter. The air purifiers, once thought infallible, sputtered, and the carefully cultivated indoor ecosystems withered without the specialized minerals harvested from the surface. The Sky City leaders, arrogant and out of touch, scrambled to understand the rebellion they had so long ignored. They dispatched their highly advanced, but numerically inferior, security forces to the surface, expecting swift subjugation. But the surface dwellers, hardened by generations of struggle, fought with a ferocity born of desperation. They knew the terrain, they understood the hidden passages, and the brutal efficiency of improvised traps. The sleek, sterile combat drones of the sky cities were no match for the cunning and sheer numbers of the starving masses. The conflict escalated, and the shimmering domes that had once been symbols of prosperity now seemed like fragile bubbles, their opulence a stark contrast to the gritty determination of those below. The air grew thick with the acrid scent of burning refuse and the metallic tang of conflict, a smell that finally reached the highest echelons of the sky cities, undeniable and terrifying. The war for Earth had truly begun, and its outcome was far from certain. The first major skirmish took place in the ruins of what was once known as Sector 7, a sprawling industrial wasteland now claimed by the surface rebels. Sky City enforcers, clad in gleaming armor and wielding advanced plasma rifles, descended from their aerial transports with an air of clinical efficiency. They expected disorganized resistance, a quick sweep and pacification. Instead, they met a wall of coordinated fury. Makeshift barricades, woven from rusted metal and salvaged concrete, sprang up with uncanny speed. Projectiles, ranging from explosive charges fashioned from mining drills to razor-sharp shrapnel fired from repurposed agricultural machinery, rained down on them. The surface dwellers, though outmatched in technology, possessed an intimate knowledge of their environment, using the shattered urban landscape as both shield and weapon. Their leader, a formidable woman named Kael, with eyes that held the fire of 1,000 suns and a face etched with the hardships of the surface, directed the resistance with chilling precision. She had seen too many children starve, too many families perish, to ever consider surrender. For her, and for those who followed her, this wasn't just a battle, it was a desperate plea for a future. The enforcers, for the first time, felt true fear, a primal dread that cut through their technological superiority. The clash at Sector 7 became a brutal stalemate, a testament to the surface dwellers' unyielding spirit. Casualties mounted on both sides, the Sky City enforcers finding their advanced weaponry less effective in the close quarters, chaotic warfare of the ruins. Their pristine armor was scarred by the crude but powerful attacks, and their tactical algorithms struggled to adapt to the unpredictable, desperate tactics of Kael's forces. Back in the Sky Cities, the governing council watched the holographic reports with growing alarm. The cost of the conflict was astronomical, not just in lost personnel and resources, but in the dwindling morale of their own populace. The carefully curated illusion of peace and prosperity was cracking under the weight of sustained warfare. Propaganda broadcasts, once easily dismissed as surface-dweller grievances, now held a terrifying ring of truth. Children in the Sky Cities, for the first time, knew hunger as their automated food processors began to ration. The vibrant, clean air grew subtly stale. The leaders, once so confident, began to whisper of negotiation, a concept previously unthinkable. But Kael and her people knew that negotiation without true victory would only lead to another cycle of oppression. They pushed forward, their eyes fixed on the gleaming, vulnerable domes above, fueled by the memory of every injustice. The turning point came when Kael's forces, through a daring, months-long infiltration, managed to disable a major power conduit feeding one of the central sky cities. The ensuing blackout wasn't just physical, it plunged the citizens into an unprecedented psychological darkness. For hours, vast sections of the opulent metropolis were silent, cold, and dark, a chilling mirror of the life endured on the surface. The Sky City's meticulously maintained infrastructure, without constant power, began to degrade rapidly. Emergency systems, never designed for such a prolonged outage, flickered and failed. This wasn't a battle, it was a demonstration of vulnerability. The Sky City Council, witnessing the chaos and fear among their own people, finally understood the gravity of the situation. They saw not just a rebellion, but a reflection of their own impending collapse. The once unthinkable became the only viable path: true dialogue. An emissary, a former engineer who had subtly advocated for understanding the surface dwellers for years, was sent down, not with weapons, but with a plea for an audience with Kael. The war had proven that neither side could truly win without destroying Earth itself. The time for a new beginning, born from the ashes of conflict, was at hand. The meeting between Kael and the emissary marked the end of the Silo Wars, though the peace that followed was fragile and demanding. It wasn't a surrender, but a realization that the survival of the species depended on the restoration of the planet. The Sky Cities began to share their advanced technology, not as masters, but as partners in a desperate race against time. Massive atmospheric scrubbers were deployed to heal the sky, while biological filters were integrated into the surface waters. For the first time in centuries, the citizens of the sky looked down not with fear, but with a sense of responsibility, and the surface dwellers looked up not with hatred, but with a cautious hope. The division between rich and poor didn't vanish overnight, but the fundamental realization that they were all bound to the same dying rock changed everything. Kael, once a warrior of the ruins, became a key architect of the New Earth Council, her fierce resolve now channeled into the arduous task of rebuilding. The silence that once signaled war was replaced by the low hum of machinery working for the benefit of all, a sound that, for the first time, felt like a heartbeat. The years that followed were arduous, marked by both progress and setbacks. The scars of the Silo Wars ran deep, not just in the land but in the hearts of the people. Mistrust lingered, a shadowy companion to the fragile peace. Yet, the necessity of cooperation gradually chipped away at old prejudices. Young engineers from the Sky Cities worked side by side with seasoned surface mechanics, devising innovative solutions for water purification and sustainable agriculture. Children, born after the wars, grew up without the ingrained animosity of their parents, seeing only fellow humans striving for a common goal. Kael, with her steady hand and unyielding vision, navigated the complex political landscape, bridging the gap between two worlds that had almost annihilated each other. She often found herself staring at the revitalized sky, a shade of blue not seen in generations, and listening to the faint, harmonious whir of the planetary rehabilitation systems. It was a testament to humanity's capacity for both destruction and redemption, a stark reminder that true progress lay not in conquest, but in collaboration. The Earth, slowly but surely, began to breathe again, its wounds healing under the shared stewardship of its once divided children. Decades later, the Earth was a vibrant testament to their collective effort. The Sky Cities, once symbols of elitism, had been integrated into a global network, their advanced technology now serving the common good. Surface settlements blossomed into self-sustaining communities, powered by renewable energy and nurtured by rejuvenated ecosystems. Kael, now an elder stateswoman, looked out from her humble abode, a hybrid structure built from both reclaimed Sky City materials and natural surface resources. The young ones, full of energy and optimism, discussed plans for interplanetary colonization, a dream once unimaginable. They spoke of venturing into the stars not to escape a dying Earth, but to carry the lessons learned from its near destruction, the imperative of unity, the sacred trust of stewardship, and the enduring power of empathy. The memory of the Silo Wars served not as a bitter reminder of division, but as a solemn oath to never repeat the mistakes of the past. The narrator, observing from afar, felt a profound sense of hope for humanity, knowing that even from the brink of self-annihilation, a new, more resilient future could emerge. The early days of the Great Integration were fraught with tension. Engineers from the Sky Cities, accustomed to pristine data and automated systems, often clashed with surface technicians whose expertise lay in improvisation and making do with scraps. Dr. Eris Thorne, a leading atmospheric physicist from Sky City, Altair, found himself exasperated by the seemingly haphazard methods of the surface crews responsible for deploying the massive air purifiers. "Your calculations are intuitive," he once remarked, watching a team led by a gruff, elderly woman named Mara calibrate a complex scrubber with nothing but a series of taps and a trained ear. Mara, whose family had maintained the rudimentary air filters of the surface for generations, simply grunted. Intuition comes from knowing the wind, Thorne, not just reading its numbers. Yet, despite these initial frictions, a grudging respect began to form. Thorne learned that Mara's intuition was often more accurate than his most sophisticated sensors in predicting microclimates and localized dust storms. He, in turn, introduced her to holographic modeling, allowing her to visualize the long-term effects of their work, something she'd only ever dreamed of. This exchange of knowledge, often born from frustration, slowly forged the foundational bonds of a truly unified planet. The Sky Cities opened their archives, revealing centuries of forgotten ecological data, while the surface communities shared their invaluable, hard-won knowledge of resilience and survival in a ruined world. This wasn't merely rebuilding, it was a synthesis of two vastly different wisdoms, creating something entirely new. As the planet slowly healed, a new generation began to emerge, one that viewed the revitalized Earth not as a post-war reconstruction project, but as their natural inheritance. These were the Greenborn, children who had never known the choking dust of the Great Famine or the shadow of the Silo Wars. They explored the reforested valleys and swam in rivers finally clean enough to sustain life, their laughter echoing a promise of a truly harmonious future. Schools, once segregated by wealth and location, now integrated curricula, teaching both advanced astrophysics from the Sky City archives and traditional agroecology from surface knowledge. Kael, her face now deeply lined but her eyes still holding the unwavering spark of purpose, watched these children with a quiet satisfaction. She had overseen the planting of the first bioengineered supertrees in the desolate dead zones, seen the reintroduction of long-extinct species, and championed the development of a universal basic income derived from communal planetary resources. The dream of interplanetary colonization, once a desperate fantasy, was now a meticulously planned reality, powered by the collective ingenuity of a unified humanity. They would venture into the cosmos not as escapees, but as ambassadors of a planet that had learned to heal itself, carrying the lessons of humility and collaboration to the stars. The Earth, once a battlefield, had become a cradle, preparing its children for a future far beyond its borders. Even in this era of unprecedented peace and prosperity, the echoes of the past occasionally surfaced. Old data logs, recovered from forgotten bunkers, sometimes played recordings of the fierce propaganda that once fueled the Silo Wars, reminding the new generation of the fragility of peace. These historical lessons were not hidden but openly discussed in global forums, ensuring that the sacrifices made were never forgotten. Kael, in her twilight years, often visited the memorials erected at the sites of the most brutal battles. They were no longer grim reminders of death, but rather testaments to resilience and reconciliation, adorned with newly grown native flora. She'd sit there, a silent guardian of memory, observing the young volunteers who meticulously maintain the sites, not out of duty, but out of a genuine desire to honor the journey. These moments were crucial, reminding humanity that their incredible progress was an inevitable but hard one. The stars beckoned, promising new frontiers, but the true frontier had been here, on Earth, within themselves, the challenging, rewarding journey of overcoming division and embracing a shared destiny. The future was not merely about technological advancement, but about the continued cultivation of empathy, understanding, and the unwavering commitment to never again. The culmination of centuries of struggle and decades of rebuilding came with the launch of the Genesis Ark, not a vessel of escape, but of exploration, designed to carry the seeds of a restored Earth to distant worlds. It was a massive, self-sustaining ecosystem, a floating biosphere filled with genetic samples of Earth's flora and fauna, tended by a diverse crew of green-born scientists, engineers, and even cultural historians. Kael, too frail to join the mission, stood on the newly vibrant launch planes, her arm in the emissaries, watching the colossal ship ascend into the pristine blue sky. Tears, not of sorrow but of profound triumph, streamed down her weathered face. The Genesis Ark represented not just humanity's technological prowess, but its ultimate redemption, a testament to its capacity for growth, forgiveness, and unbounded hope. As the Ark became a shimmering speck against the endless canvas of space, a collective cheer erupted from the millions gathered below, a sound that transcended old divisions. It was the sound of a unified species, finally looking outward, carrying the precious, hard-won wisdom of their home world to the vast, unknown cosmos. Earth, once scarred and broken, had become a beacon. With the Genesis Ark successfully launched, Kael's life work was complete. She retired from public life, choosing to spend her final years in a small, self-sufficient community nestled among the restored forests she had helped cultivate. Yet, her influence remained profound. The principles she had championed, radical empathy, environmental stewardship, and the unwavering belief in unified action, became the bedrock of the new global governance. Kael's decrees, as they were affectionately known, guided every major decision, from resource allocation to interstellar diplomacy. A new generation of leaders emerged, mentored by those who had lived through the wars, but unburdened by their scars. They were pragmatic idealists, building upon Kael's legacy with innovative approaches to global challenges. They established the Interstellar Accord, a set of ethical guidelines for their expansion into the cosmos, ensuring that humanity's past mistakes of exploitation and division would not be repeated on new frontiers. The Earth flourished, a living monument to its inhabitants' capacity for change. Its societies were now fluid, interconnected webs of cooperation, where individual well-being was inextricably linked to the health of the planet and the collective human spirit. The Silo Wars, once a terrifying prophecy, had become the crucible that forged a truly enlightened civilization. Years turned into decades, and the Genesis Ark was no longer alone. A fleet of exploration vessels, inspired by its success and built with the combined technologies of Earth, began to pierce the veil of the Sol system. These ships, designated Scout Seeds, were smaller, faster, and designed for initial reconnaissance, carrying diverse teams prepared for any eventuality. They encountered no other intelligent life in their initial probes, but discovered exoplanets brimming with unique biospheres, some ripe for terraforming with Earth's adapted flora, others designated as pristine reserves to be observed and protected. The process of interstellar expansion was slow and deliberate, guided by the Interstellar Accord. Every new discovery was approached with reverence, every potential interaction with caution and respect. Humanity had learned the hard way that unchecked ambition led to ruin. Back on Earth, the planet buzzed with a quiet, vibrant energy. The sky cities now served as orbital hubs for interstellar travel and advanced research, while the surface teemed with life, both wild and cultivated. The memory of the Silo Wars had faded from immediate trauma to a foundational historical lesson taught to every child, a testament to where humanity had come from and a compass for where it was going. Outward, but always with the wisdom of home in its heart. The universe was vast, but humanity was ready, not as conquerors, but as careful, compassionate explorers. As the scout seeds pushed deeper into the cosmic dark, Earth entered a period known as the Great Reflection. It was a time of internal consolidation. The physical scars of the Silo Wars were gone, but the cultural memory was being carefully preserved in the Great Archives, not as a source of shame, but as a mandatory curriculum for the Greenborn and their descendants. In the bustling heart of the former dead zones, cities now lived in symbiotic harmony with the vast, bioengineered forests. The air was so pure it tasted of ancient mountains, and the rivers ran with a clarity that seemed almost magical to those who remembered the sludge of the past. Kael's granddaughter, Alara, had taken up the mantle of planetary historian. She spent her days interviewing the last few centenarians who had witnessed the signing of the first peace treaties. These elders spoke of a world of borders and nations, concepts that seemed increasingly alien to a society that functioned as a single, planetary organism. Alara's work wasn't just about recording dates. It was about capturing the feeling of the transition, the terror of the first sky descent, the tentative handshake between an engineer and a scavenger, and the first time a child saw a bird return to a wasteland. This collective memory became the soul of Earth, a digital and biological record that was transmitted to the Genesis Ark and all subsequent colonies, ensuring that no matter how far humanity traveled, they would never lose the compass of their hard-won empathy. Centuries had passed since the first seed was planted in the dust of the Silo Wars. Earth was no longer a wounded patient. It had become a conscious, thriving sanctuary. The Interstellar Accord had expanded into a galactic symphony, as humanity, now spread across a dozen star systems, remained united not by government, but by the shared biological and spiritual frequency of their home world. In the final days of her remarkably long life, Alara, the keeper of the Great Archives, stood upon the balcony of the restored high spire in what was once a desolate wasteland. Below her, the world was a masterpiece of vibrant greens and crystalline blues. Above, the sky was filled with the faint, rhythmic pulses of ships transitioning into warp, not as warriors, but as cosmic gardeners. Kael's name had long since passed into the realm of myth, but her essence lived in the very breath of the planet. The final entry in the Great Archives was not a record of a battle or a technological breakthrough, but a simple observation. We did not conquer the world. We learned to belong to it. And in belonging to Earth, we earned the right to belong to the stars. As the sun set, casting a golden hue over the integrated architecture of nature and light, the message was clear. The journey that began in the shadow of nuclear silos had reached its zenith. Humanity had finally solved the greatest equation of all, that survival is a collective art form. The cradle was now a garden, and the garden had no walls. The story of Earth's fall was over. The story of life's infinite horizon had just begun.